Excellent. Matt, can you hear me?
Yep, I got you. Can you hear me?
Yep, got you. Perfect. All right. I saw Peter just came in too as well.
Yep.
Oh, there he comes. Excellent. All right, Peter, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep. Awesome. Now we're just waiting on Sean. Okay, let me.
Now, Kevin, will we stay on here? Will we stay on here the entire time? We don't have to hit call in again or anything like that?
No. You'll stay on the whole time.
Okay.
And so, like, just so you know, right now, like the show is broadcasting live right now.
Okay.
Right. So, because usually when the show goes live, it tings people that are subscribers to the show and stuff. So it gives it a little time for people to come in. I call it like the lobby of the show. So kind of mingling around, chatting ahead of time.
Okay.
So I give you that warning just in case there's anything you don't want to kind of,
I got you. Perfect.
All right, let me. So,
that's a good thing to tell an Irishman.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no telling what might come out of Peter's mouth.
Believe me, I know that one by experience. Believe me. Let me see. Is that you, Sean? If so, hit the call-in button at the top. Nothing yet. Sean, if this is you, Sean, calling in, there's a call-in button at the top. If you hit one of those call-in buttons.
Yeah, mine was actually at the bottom.
Okay, here she comes. Great.
Okay.
Excellent. Oh, yours was at the bottom?
Yeah.
Oh, God, it's different for everybody. Sean, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Awesome.
Woo-hoo!
Yes, we got it. Whoa. Sorry, I had Representative Elizabeth Fiedler and State Senator Nikhil Saval last week. And Elizabeth Fiedler's calling in, and but the two of us, we were 20 minutes late for getting the show. We could not get her connected for the life of me. And I'm saying hit the button at the bottom, and Nikhil is saying no, mine was at the top. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? I can't even
I'm just glad my kids aren't listening to me because they can hear how ancient their old man is.
Oh, I called them ahead of time. They're actually coming in tonight.
Good, great.
Yeah. I kind of looked at all your families and I learned that everybody. So it's a no.
Thanks, Kev. We appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Hey, so let me ask you just some before we kind of run in the main show. Just so I've got the numbers right, what's the latest in terms of, the threats that numbers of jobs that are, faculty and then staff jobs that are on the line right now? We know?
Well, there were 100 altogether. Right. And 47 faculty, Peter?
Well, they're looking at reductions of 30% of the faculty, 67, 68 over the 2-year period. For this upcoming year, they're looking at reductions of 43.66 faculty members.
So we'll make that 44 because I don't know what a third of a person is. So
yeah, that's probably a good thing.
Yeah.
So that leaves that means 56 staff members, Sean?
Yes, something like that. Yeah, mostly custodians and grounds at this point.
Okay.
Although people are not being replaced as they retire, so that's making an impact as well. What they want to do is outsource custodial work and grounds work because they think it will be cheaper.
Which is bullshit.
Yeah, and it may be cheaper, but the quality will suffer, and certainly the students will suffer.
You know what? We have. I'll ask some of our folks at Kutztown about it, because we actually got numbers. We actually ran a whole bunch of numbers for the folks on our local APSCUF, because we had access to some data that basically showed over time that the contracting out of those services actually cost the university more in the long run.
Yeah, I would believe that.
Yeah,
they do. That's the thing. It's there has been, it's been shown that in many cases, they say that, well, they're going to let ASME bid too.
Right.
And in actuality, some of these bids come in underneath what some of these outside vendors would charge.
Right.
So we're getting into a whole, the whole question of, they're looking for efficiencies, they're looking for cost savings. They're not going to get them.
No, they're not. Like, I think, look, I mean, from my perspective, I'll just put my cards on the table right now. I mean, from my perspective, this is just a bunch. I mean, this is a load of smoke and mirrors for this guy to basically accomplish his kind of like dream of like higher ed education reform that he could then market kind of beyond it. That's what I mean. I even like, changing the poshy kind of moniker to the state system, I think was kind of intentional on that score too as well. I mean, it's astounding to me. What he's been able to get away with, and the fact that what's coming out of his mouth is diametrically opposed to what he's actually doing in practice. So,
oh, absolutely. No, I mean, he makes a big deal about being a champion for socioeconomic, access to education, and everything he's doing belies that.
Yeah. Okay, let me just go here and give this a couple more minutes for folks to come in. Let me pull this over. Just doing some little adjustments here. Okay, so my thought here. Oh, look at this. This is a nice little glitch. Let me get that out. My thought. Wait, hold on. Sorry. I'm trying to do too many things at once. So kind of my thought overall here is, the way I look at it is kind of like my job here is kind of really to kind of set the table for you all. Right. And to give, a little bit of introduction or context for, kind of a little bit of broader picture. But what I thought is like, obviously start off, give the introduction to the show, then kind of introduce each of you. And then just to try to, at first to, I think it would be helpful, especially, now, Matt, you're a past president, right?
Right. I'm past president of the chapter, and I'm currently a member of statewide. I'm an officer at large for statewide EC.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Let me put that in here too.
Okay.
He's on state. Okay, that'll help too. So what I thought and one, I'm super psyched that we've got this kind of representation too. Like in particular, Sean, I think I said this to you. The fact that the impact on staff is just not getting the same kind of headlines that it had in some other locations. So I'm thrilled that you're here.
Right.
We had some, locally we had, when we went through rounds of retrenchment at Kutztown, we had some trouble kind of bringing some folks in. And I think that there was, from our local ASME, just in part because I think they were really, we were like the first to go, and they were getting like the full head of steam coming at them. And both the council and then the local leaders were just trying to kind of figure out if it's going to be better to have their heads down, or is it going to be better to fight? So, so we kind of in APSCUF, we kind of did a whole bunch of behind the scenes work for some folks instead of having it out in front. But that was one of the things we talked about afterwards, is how, the impact is just absolutely huge. So what I thought we could do is, as part of the intro, I've kind of got I'm going to introduce you first, Peter, then Sean, then Matt, and then what if to start with just kind of like the lay of the land, like kind of what's happening on the faculty level, right? We'll go to you, Peter, and then go to Sean. What's the impact look like on staff? Right. What are someone's issues? And then we'll kind of go to kind of Matt, kind of looking at someone who's been, involved in the state system for a long period of time, and kind of your perspective, and now with the state angle too as well. What do you want to, kind of add to that conversation that's going to kind of give us kind of some angles, right? And so that we'll start with that kind of introduction, and I think that'll be the best way to get people who are kind of either watching on YouTube or the folks that are kind of listening in here, or will pick up the podcast later. We'll give them a sense of some of the concrete challenges that are facing there, and then from there we can talk about economic impacts on the town. We can talk about what's this going to mean in terms of, say, student degrees, just the identity of the place. And so feel free to take the conversation in ways that you think are going to important to go. I mean, I'll obviously kind of, move things in particular directions if there's pauses, but if you want to pick up the baton and run with it, please do.
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any questions or concerns before we go?
No, I'm all good.
No, I'm good.
All good.
Okay, excellent. So what you're going to hear is let's see, folks are starting to come in. Excellent. Welcome, everybody. We're going to pause. So try to be like quiet for about I don't know, 20 seconds after I say 3, 2, 1. Because in that time we'll kind of pause it. I'm going to start the YouTube stream, because this will kind of stream out there too as well. Then you're going to hear the intro music coming in. After the intro music, that's when I'll kind of give the introductions and then kind of introduce you all, and kind of we'll proceed with the program.
Sounds good.
All right?
Yep.
All right. All right, cool. All right, excellent. Put this down. I think we're good to go. All right. Let me recording. Okay, here we go. 3. Oh, wait, this went off. That would have been annoying. Sorry. So make sure the level's right on this one. Yep. Sassy, do you hear this? Do you hear this sound all right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Just making sure it's coming through on your end so you can hear it. Okay. Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Try my people call. Where are all my people? Where are all my people? I guess I'll fly away now.
Hey, welcome everybody. everybody. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out to Coop Live. Yes, it is our call-in show from Monday, March 15th, 2021. On Out to Coop Live, we talk to progressives, activists, and troublemakers of all sorts, right from our own backyards and from across the country. On Fridays, Sean Kitchen and I break down the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. We've been told we should call that our flagship show. I said, okay, sure, it's our flagship show. But you can get both our live, Out to Coop Live and our Friday flagship show by subscribing to our podcast on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. But you can only call in to the conversation live through the Podbean app on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can also jump on our YouTube live stream. Matter of fact, it's live streaming right now. So, if you're sitting here, you're waiting to kind of chime in, head on over to our YouTube page, hit that subscribe button, make sure you hit that bell so that you get notified every time that we go live. And make sure you like the stream, hit that little thumbs up button. Your subscriptions and the more you subscribe, the more that you kind of pay attention to the show, the more you engage the show, the more people get to see this, which is exactly what we're hoping to do to amplify the voices that are out there. And you can help support this show by becoming a patron for as little as $5 a month at patreon.com/rcpress. And if you're listening to this show live on the Podbean app, you can show us some love right now. You can drop a few bucks in our tip jar by clicking on that little gift icon at the bottom of the screen. Yep, fill your digital pockets with Podbean's golden beans and send us a gift of your choice. Every gift that you send helps support and expand this podcast. And, right before the show tonight, I want to give a special shout out to our newest patron, Janet. Thank you, Janet. And Janet is, that was paid in Canadian dollars. So I believe that is our first international patron, which I'm pretty excited about. You can also help the show by heading over to our YouTube channel. Like I said, make sure you smash that subscribe button, like the stream for the show, and hit that notification bell so you know when we go live. And if you're looking for some more PA-based progressive talk, tune into the Rick Smith Show's live stream at 9 p.m. Eastern on his YouTube channel, Twitter, Facebook. That dude, he streams for every place you can stream. That's where Rick's at 9 p.m. Eastern, 5 days a week. Also want to give a shout out to these folks at The Game Inn. Yes, for all you gamers out there, I want to introduce you to the go-to place for all your gaming needs. Check out The Game Inn, located right on 309 in Quakertown, PA. Hey, is somebody moving around in there? Sorry. Quakertown, PA. The Game Inn is a Quakertown-based family-owned gaming store. Not only are they friends of the show and awesome folks all around, but they have almost everything in gaming products you can imagine. N64s, Nintendo DSs, PS4s, Switches, large selection of video games, all platforms, collectibles, action figures, Funko Pops, and kids get a discount for every A that they get. It's fantastic on their report card. Check them out on their Facebook page. Follow them at Twitter at The Game Inn. That's with 2 N's. Got a question about a game, looking for something hard to get, message them on Facebook, drop them an email at thegameinpa@gmail.com. Give them a call at 267-424-2535, or check them out online at thegamein.com. And the reason why I shout them out is because, look, they're awesome people. Like, their son is my son's, one of his best friends, and they're just great people. I want to support them. They're a black-owned business right in Quakertown. Definitely a great place to go. And, of course, the special shout-out goes to Jonathan Mann, who wrote our intro song, There Are No People in the Future. Check out all his great stuff on his YouTube page and follow him on Twitter at SongADayMan. That's with 2 N's, at SongADayMan on Twitter. So, on today's show, we're talking about the PA state system of higher education. Yes, and Sean Kitchen is not with us today, so we don't have to worry about Sean kind of like going off into Spaceland, because I tend to bore him with this stuff at times. But we're talking about the PA system of higher education, in particular, Chancellor Dan Greenstein's plan to merge 3 state universities, Bloomsburg University, Mansfield University, and Lock Haven University. And Lock Haven's the university which tonight's guests teach and work. And as you might recall, Chancellor Greenstein is also forcing mergers of 3 additional campuses in Western PA, California, Clarion, and Edinboro. And you just look at what is actually happening at Lock Haven and what the impact is going to be at one university, right? And, look, this is the reason why we have this show tonight is we got faculty and staff members who are standing up there. You got students who have been active in organizing to save the Haven, as they call it. What we're looking at there is you're talking about, like, the Chancellor Greenstein wants to cut just about 30% of the faculty. That is about 44 faculty members. You're talking about the loss of about 56 APSCUF workers. That's mostly in custodial grounds. And of course, what do they want to do? Contract it out, privatize. You know what we're talking about. But it's not only just the kind of those direct numbers there. We're talking about the impact on students' long-term education and professional goals. We're talking about the economic impact in small-town PA, right? We're talking about the identity of a legacy college, right? That was founded as a way to make sure that there was access, affordable access, right, to people across the state. Right. I mean, when I say this is the GEM, the state system of higher education, is the gem of Pennsylvania, this is why. Right. What a perfect mission to say to make sure that we had public education, higher education accessible to people all over the state. So my guests tonight are Peter Campbell. He is the president of Lock Haven's chapter of the faculty union, APSCUF. Campbell is a professor in the sports administration program at Lock Haven. He teaches courses in the undergraduate and graduate programs, including contemporary issues and problems in sports administration, sport law and ethics, governance of sports, sports facility management operation, sports administration, professional field experience, and legal and policy issues in sport, right? And I got to say, Lock Haven has got quite the legacy of sports, right? I can remember when we were fighting back the huge cuts that were coming down against Pashi way back in kind of 2011, right? When Corbett was proposing it, it was the Lock Haven cross country team that ran from Lock Haven down to Harrisburg to join the protest there. So this is a pretty storied history. And we got Sean Odell. Sean is the president of AFSCME Council 13, Local 2360. And that includes employees at Lock Haven University, including custodians, groundskeepers, maintenance, mechanics, carpenters, plumbers, painters, HVACs, electricians, secretaries, and support staff. Basically, we're talking about the people that make the university run. Or as she puts it, AFSCME members are the backbone of the Lock Haven University community. Without them, Lock Haven doesn't exist. Odell is also a graduate of Lock Haven with a BA in English. He was a non-traditional student, graduated at the age of 41, then given an opportunity to work in the Upward Bound program. And that opportunity kind of led her over to the Center of Global Engagement and the Global Honors Program, where she works there as a secretary. And finally, but last but not least, we've got Matt Gerton. He's a professor and chair of the Department of Communications at Lock Haven University. He's also a former president of the Lock Haven chapter of APSCUF, and he's on the State APSCUF's Executive Council. The State University Systems, this is kind of like, I wanted to include this as part of this because I thought this is really telling about the long-term impact that these universities have. So check this out. He grew up about 10 miles away from Bloomsburg, where he swam in the old Centennial Gym pool and went to Celebrity Artist Series productions at Haas Auditorium there at Bloom. And his high school band director took Matt and his other students to Mansfield for weekly music lessons. Then he returned to Bloom in the mid-90s for his MA in communication. While finishing off his doctorate at Florida State University, he worked as an adjunct for a year at Shippensburg University. You talk about a long-term impact and kind of a wealth of experience with the state system, not just a faculty member, not just a worker, but also someone as part of the community. Welcome, everybody, to the show. Thank you much for joining me tonight.
Thanks for having
us, Kevin.
Thank you.
Oh, you got it. So, look, I mean, you all have been on the front lines, and in this past fall, I saw the protests that were going on, the rallies that were going on. One of the most kind of incredible rallies that I think I've seen in terms of its impact, where you had like 100 pairs of shoes that was outside in the amphitheater to represent all the people that are going to lose their positions at the university. You've got students who have been active in support of what's going on there. So it's like, this is, you guys have been on the front lines. And so what I thought you could do is like, we could just kind of go around the horn, so to speak, and give us a little sense of what the lay of the land is and kind of what's actually happening at Lock Haven University, and kind of let folks know kind of what's at stake here. So why don't we start with Peter? Let's start with you.
Okay. Looking at Lock Haven, in the last couple of years, we were told that we had to come into compliance with financial sustainability from the Chancellor's office down in Harrisburg. And the management team at Lock Haven University came up with a 5-year plan to grow the university and to actually achieve financial sustainability. Unfortunately, the Chancellor's office reduced that 5-year time frame down to 2 years last year. And as a result of that, the 5-year plan was no longer an option, according to the Chancellor. And as a result of that, we needed to look at reductions to achieve financial sustainability. And with that, he mandated that all of the PASHE schools had to come into compliance with the 2010-11 faculty-student ratio. And that faculty-student ratio is back at the time when PASHE was at an all-time high. So it's basically a 19.3 students to each faculty member.
Now, listen, let me stop you just for a second, because like this is right here, and I think that like APSCUF President Jamie Martin I think has done a tremendous job in kind of pointing that out. That is actually the peak of the demographic hump, right? Was 2010, which you're pegging it to. So basically, what the chancellor is doing, just what you described there, he's taking the high water mark, right, in terms of just population. Right. And using that, and again, I remember at Kutztown, we had overflowing classrooms. We didn't have a place to put faculty. It was a difficult time to get through. But they also knew that the demographic trend was going to trend downly. And so she says that, if you take that same trend out over 20 years instead of 10 years, you actually have a fairly level increase, not a decrease. Right. So I think that's really important for people to understand, is that this is an artificially constructed downturn and crisis, from my humble perspective.
Yes, you put it excellently. It is artificial. But the reality is that in this 2-year time frame, we have approximately a 13-14 to 1 ratio. So to get to 19.3 requires reductions at the institutional level. And as a result of that, as a part of a plan put forward by management to Harrisburg, they were looking to reduce 68 faculty positions over a 2-year period from 2020 to 2022, which correlates to 30% of the overall faculty at Lockhaven University. And along with that are reductions in other areas of the university, including the ASME representation as well. So that's kind of a little bit of where we're at right now. And of course, we're fighting. We had the rally looking at who will fill these shoes, where we had 100 pairs of shoes laid out. And we did have some speakers to talk about the challenges that we were facing. And we have basically requested that the Chancellor look to remove us from this whole process of looking to merge with the other two schools. The concern being that we do have $53 million in reserves at Lockhaven University, which we thought, as a part of a 5-year plan, we would be able to grow out of the current situation and to be able to grow and thrive for the future.
Well, and my understanding, right, and my understanding was too, right, that 5-year plan, that basically like hit all the markers for financial sustainability, right? Even at the markers that were being set down by the Chancellor, which were pretty steep to begin with.
That's correct. We were looking to grow out of it and provide quality opportunities for the students, rather than look to cut our way into meeting the requirements.
Crazy. All right, let's turn to you, Sean, because if you're talking about the loss of, like, one hand, you're talking about the loss of 30% of the faculty, about 44 faculty members. You're talking about the loss of 56, at least around 56 ASME members, like particularly the custodial and grounds crew. And, this is an often overlooked aspect of what happened, not just at Lockhaven, but has happened at other state system universities and other, institutes of higher education as a whole. The gutting of the staff and the, and the long-term that impact that it has just on the ability for the university to function is incredible. So what's this look like from your angle, for the perspective of you and your members?
Well, first of all, I want to say that our custodians have done an absolutely stellar job. They've worked their tails off during this pandemic to make sure that the whole university, residence halls, classrooms, everything is safe and as clean as possible so that they can mitigate the spread of COVID. And I don't think they get enough credit for that. So I just wanted to shout out for them about that.
Awesome.
The custodians, the grounds crew, the mechanics, the secretaries, the people who work in financial aid, these are all people who are going to be impacted by these cuts and already are being impacted because people who retire are not being replaced. So that means that they have to disperse the work from a person who was there to the people who remain, which increases the workload and is stressful, of course. But especially the custodial workers and the grounds crew, what they're wanting to do is to outsource that work. And by that, they want to get bids from an outside company to come in and do the same work for less Now, we have some problems with that. Number one, because our custodians and grounds crew, they are top notch. They do an excellent job, and the university is going to be hard pressed to find the caliber of workers with the dedication that we have already here at LHU. Secondly, we have people who've worked at LHU for years, 15, 20 years, and they do a whole lot more than just do the cleaning and mow the grass. They build relationships with these students because the custodians and the grounds crew, they see these students every day. Many of our students are first-generation college students. They're intimidated by professors or deans or, other people in positions of authority at the university. And they see a custodian or a grounds crew guy or woman, and they can relate to them. And also, the grounds crew and the custodians, they can observe and they can tell when a student's having a problem. I have stories of custodians who've reached out to help students who are having a problem or just having a bad day, needed a shoulder to cry on, need a little encouragement. I mean, it's way more than just cleaning the floors and cutting the grass. It's way more than that.
I mean, absolutely. And you're also talking about, like these are like family sustaining jobs, like in the community.
Absolutely.
I mean, so you're talking about an impact that, because I mean, we should put this right out in front because, if you're teaching at the university or if you're working at the university, that means you're living in the region, right?
Exactly.
And that means that this is like an economic driver, and it has the impacts that go, beyond the walls of the university, but actually goes into the communities and is supporting all these families. And that human component of this is so critical.
Right. And what we're speculating, and we're pretty sure that this is right, that those companies that come in and do the outsourcing are going to be paying less than what the university workers are making now, and they're not family sustainable wages. And that's the issue, family sustainable. So a family might have to take a second job, might not be able to volunteer to coach the Little League team or whatever it is, or might not be able to afford to eat out at the local restaurants, or they have to downsize their home, and then we'll have a loss in revenue of taxes. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Well, this is kind of like the way that our kind of economy has been going now for decades now. I mean, I look at it now, like I look at the downstage now. I'm 51. Right. And I look at it now and it's like, OK, my job gets cut. Right. There's no way in hell I'm getting another job like this one. Right. And it's the same thing here. As if you're talking about you've been working, you've been putting your time in. Like you said, these people have been here for a long time. Right. And put in their time, kind of invested in the university. And then you get you're gone. Right. You're cut. There's no way you're going to. I mean, let's be clear. You're talking about, kind of a salary that has been built up over time. Right. Thanks to the union contract. Right.
Yes.
You've got health benefits, right, provided in part by from the union contract. You've got protections on the job, right, and that just all goes away.
It does.
And if you're like, whatever, in your 40s, in your 50s, or your 60s, where do you go at that point? Where do you go?
Yeah, it's and our members are quite concerned, and they love their jobs, they love the students, and they want to continue to do what they've been doing so well.
100%. So Matt, let's go to you. So, I mean, I really appreciate you sending along that stuff, that background story of your experience in the area, because it's like, it's almost like you bleed state system, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. It's been a part of my life since I can remember. It's one of those things where my mom has actually 2 degrees from Bloomsburg. One in remedial reading from back in the 70s. I was small when I, found out about Bloomsburg, and and then one that she got in the early 2000s or mid 2000s from instructional technology. Mm-hmm. So, in addition to my graduate degree, there are 3 degrees that come from Bloomsburg. And so, I've been involved in the system for a long time. I did I did jump out of the state for my undergraduate, and I saw the other side of things. I went to the University of Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I am the alumni club of Lock Haven for USC. But and I saw the other side of things. It's a private school. I think the BMW was a car of choice. Out there, and so I saw that. But then, and I moved to Atlanta then, and worked, for a JTPA program before I came back to Pennsylvania the first time. But I'm back, and what that really showed me is that when it comes to socioeconomic need, those students at USC, at Bucknell, at Williams and some of these other schools, well, they're always going to have those academic opportunities. But the students that we serve, they won't. They don't have many chances. And so consequently, that's a very vital part of post-secondary education that I think we have to serve.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I've, was reading, I was looking at I think it was an editorial, Matt, that you kind of wrote. I want to, what was the date on it? It was kind of in the fall. And, one of the claims about what's happening here for Lock Haven and with, merging with Bloomsburg and Mansfield is that it's going to save the system money. Right? That this is somehow going to save the system money. And, again, I get it. I know how unicorns are magical and those things can have tremendous impact, but I have yet to meet a unicorn. And you mentioned the supposed unicorn-like solution down in Georgia, which didn't go so well. Right?
No,
so can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, yeah. And as a matter of fact, the consultants that were used for the process in Georgia are the same consultants that they're using up here in Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, the chancellor likes to say, if we look in the rearview mirror, we can't look in the rearview mirror. Well, if we do look in the rearview mirror, we can see Georgia, where they collapsed 14 schools into 7. And one of the examples that I quote is the merger of Georgia Perimeter with Georgia State, which is actually a school that I worked for back during my time in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And that merger only saved 0.5% of their operating budget.
0.5%.
Correct. Yeah. So it didn't save anything. And then when you look at the merger that took place between Armstrong State and Georgia State on the eastern side of Georgia, they basically have an alumni group right now that's formed to, it said, unmerge my schools because they've lost 195 positions between the two schools and they've lost enrollment. And in a state like Georgia, which has had an increasing population, that's pretty damning evidence that mergers just don't work. They don't save money. There aren't, and this chancellor has talked about efficiencies. There aren't efficiencies, and so really, what this is a manufactured crisis on his part to put us in this position.
Well, I'm curious, and I'm also trying to put this as diplomatically as I possibly can. Is what's the end game here? It's like, let me give you a little context. Is that Chancellor Greenstein was at had a town hall, obviously a Zoom town hall at Kutztown that I kind of dropped in on last week. And he kept on getting pressured on a bunch of different issues about trying to solve it. And when the issue came up about students' lack of access to, for example, to mental health services, right, which has been an ongoing complaint for years since we've been there, sure. And a series of other issues, right? He seemed to get a little upset. And then basically said, well, listen, the gist of it is this. I'll make a long story short. The gist of it is look, higher ed's got to learn to do what the tech industry does, right? Just kind of wildly experiment and fail fast, right? And I'm thinking okay, that works fine for a SpaceX rocket, right? But it doesn't work so well for human beings, right?
Right.
It doesn't work so well for careers and for professional development and education and family sustaining jobs and communities, right? So what is going on with this merger? Does any of you have any sense of what seems to be at stake here and why he's doing this?
This is Peter, obviously,
Peter, yeah.
and I have a little bit of a concern because really we don't have any plan yet. I mean, nothing's been presented to us, and in March of a recruitment year for the fall of 21, trying to attract students to Lockhaven University to get the quality education that we can provide, that my colleagues, faculty, and staff are all willing to work hard to make sure is available. But we have no plan that's been presented to us yet. We don't even know the name of this institution at this point. We don't know what the program array will be. We don't have a final answer on whether athletics will exist on all three campuses. We're hoping to get that in the next month. So there's, as I've said in the past, the devil's in the details. Until we actually see what's being presented to us, it's hard for us to fully evaluate. But what we do know is that we're going to lose a lot of colleagues prior to this merger taking place, which seems as if it's a lack or a failure in planning too. Wouldn't you want everybody to be on the ship to see what we need to do and then decide and look for the opportunities for everybody to succeed? And that's where I get a concern, because I just feel as if there's a failure in the planning process for this whole venture as well.
Well, it strikes me as about a very convenient way of putting the cart before the horse, right? I mean, if you eliminate, if you're talking about, eliminating a third of the faculty member or 30% of the faculty, right, then you're producing a particular kind of crisis, right? I mean, let me just ask you this. Let me go to some of the details of that kind of those cuts, right? So, like, who are the faculty that they're looking to cut? Is it particular programs? Is it across the board? How is that shaking out?
Well, you're absolutely right. That's one of the things that they're targeting. They're targeting programs. Currently, their proposed plan at Lockhaven University places 12 programs into moratorium.
Okay, 12 programs. 12
programs into moratorium. And what you'll frequently hear is that, well, we can't be everything to everybody. Well,
right,
we're
that's
not.
His line.
We never have been. And when you cut programs, you're not growing anything. You're spiraling the bowl even faster. So they are looking to wipe out certain programs that have been a big part of our history. Now, the argument that the chancellor will make is, well, schools have changed over 150 years. Well, Lockhaven just ended its 150th anniversary, and that this school has changed. Well, let's look at the facts here. The changes that have happened have been to spur growth. We started out as a normal school, like pretty much all of these schools did.
Right.
Then we moved into a state teachers college. Then we became a state college, and then we became universities. Each one of those changes was directed towards growth. This change here is directed to shrink, or basically, eliminate certain schools. And so, it's that argument's a non-starter.
It's amazing, Sean. I'm curious to get your perspective on this. Is that so? You're talking about the outsourcing basically of custodial staff and the grounds crew as kind of one of the proposals. Is this something that has been like a slow bleed up until now? I mean, what's it look like? Because this is not the first time that Lockhaven has had to deal with kind of retrenchments and budget cuts, correct?
Correct. Yeah. For the past several years, they have been downsizing staff by not replacing people who have retired. And that presents some problems. I mean, yes, everybody needs to chip in and do their part, but it comes to a certain point where it's just no longer efficient. And I think we're at that point now. There just aren't enough people to do everything that needs to be done.
Right.
And I know that they do outsource certain jobs on campus, but there's a process that has to go through, and we don't have the personnel any longer to do some of those things. So that sort of outsourcing is permitted. But this broad brush of just outsourcing an entire group of employees, I've not heard of that happening before.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable and dramatic. I think that we can certainly kind of agree on that, because it's absolutely astonishing. I want
Kevin,
to just give me a second. Remind everybody that's kind of tuned in. So in a few minutes, we're definitely going to turn to say, what's going to be happening coming up. I know there's some rallies and there's some actions that are coming up here. We've got some deadlines that are happening. There's going to be, this seems to me that's going to the speed is going to increase pretty soon, which I want to talk about in a second. But if there's folks out there that, you've got some questions, you got some concerns, you kind of want to chime in, you can leave a comment in the YouTube channel. Some people, there's good discussion going on there already. If you want to call in, if you're tuned in on the Podbean app, you can hit that little call-in button in about 10 minutes. We'd love to hear from you. Comments, questions, concerns. Got anything you'd like to hear about? Got a comment about your experience at Lock Haven University? You got similar kind of experiences that you want to share, or just kind of a message of hope, or questions for our guests? We'd love to hear from you. So let me go right then to the to that impact. Peter, I think you were about to say something.
Well, obviously we look at the economic impact and how this is going to affect the local community in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And we have a total economic impact, according to PASHE's own numbers from their study in April of 2015, of $148,709,000 on the local economy. And we have an employment impact of $85,461,000 in the local communities. This is just Lock Haven, for a combined economic and employment impact of $234,170,000. We're concerned that without these plans and with these reductions that they're looking at, both for faculty, managers, staff, that this is going to greatly impact the local community, as well as Lock Haven University and the ability to provide that quality education to the students in the future. We are the third highest employer in Clinton County. And it's obviously a concern for us that this is going to extend beyond the walls of higher education in the community into the local town, the local businesses, the local rental properties, and the attraction of students into this beautiful community in Lock Haven.
Yeah, I don't see how it doesn't have a major impact, because you're talking about, the amount of, time, the money that is spent just in the communities on an everyday basis. And especially if there's the plan. I mean, do I get this right that, I recognize there is no plan yet, which seems to be, deeply troubling, because especially is it April 15th or April that the Chancellor has to go back and report on the plans?
Yeah, at the Board of Governors meeting in April, he will have to present. He will have to present the plan. And I mean, just to circle back here
yes, go ahead.
to what you said in terms of the end game that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. What is truly troubling, and the Chancellor has said this multiple times on different occasions, is when asked how would you market a school that's lost 30. I've asked him this question before. Professor at Mansfield has sort of approached the subject as well. But when asked how you're going to market a school that has lost multiple programs, has lost 30% of its faculty in a little over 2 years, he's basically said, well, we can't afford 14 public comprehensive residential institutions. So effectively, he's basically saying, we're going to close some of you. And he said that multiple times. And it's, so that to me, that is his end game. There's I'm sure it looks pretty good probably to some other systems, like maybe, the UC system or wherever he might want to go next as a president of an Ivy. If he can show how he radically changed public higher education in the state of Pennsylvania, increased efficiencies, right-sized, realigned, whatever corporate speak you want to use. That's to me, that's a pretty telling statement in terms of his end game.
Yeah, I don't see how it could be anything other than that. I mean, I've heard him say that, it's going to open up all these opportunities and all this. But I mean, I think the question that you said you've been raising already is right on point, right? Basically saying, okay, you're basically cutting 30% of the faculty members, and now you're going to go out and you're going to attract students to that? Or you're going to basically say to these students, no, you can do a third of your program online. I don't even see how the math works on that. let alone the concept. I mean, my understanding too, there's been no kind of nitty gritty answers to questions about like NCAA accreditation. There's been no kind of attempts to say like what's the pragmatics of doing a degree. Does it mean certain programs will be only at certain universities, and then if a student, say at Lock Haven, wanted to take this program only offered at Bloomsburg, they'd have to do it all online. So they're going to be paying like for housing at Lock Haven and doing online classes in Bloomsburg. I mean, are those the kind of questions that people have at this point?
Absolutely. And that's the troubling part of it. If we are no longer a residential institution, if we cannot draw from, beyond this 5-county area that we have, we're going to be, we won't exist. And that's the scary part of this. But I don't want to be all doom and gloom here, because I do understand. Listen, but you can still get right now, and we're in a fight here, and I believe we're in a fight we can win. You can still get a great education at Lock Haven University. You can still get a great one at Mansfield and a great one at Bloomsburg, as well as any school throughout the state system. The concern is, if they are allowed to implement this proposed plan, we're at a precipice. And so the idea right now is to get involved in the fight and say what's wonderful about these schools.
Excellent. I want to come right after this. Because the one thing that I want to recommend everybody out there, everybody who's listening here tonight, and if you haven't heard that, I don't know if you all know Anand Giridharadas's book, Winners Take All. If you have not, I strongly recommend this guy. This guy, I remember, he is someone who worked for years in kind of, the TED Talk circuit, the influencer, the kind of, idea guy kind of system, and the philanthropy system and all this. And basically this book, he basically exposes kind of it all, right? Particularly the kind of discourse and everything that comes out of Silicon Valley, talking about these ideas that are kind of very amorphous, but really kind of are not grounded in anything in particular. They're supposed to happen by themselves. And I finished reading that book on my way to campus, or listening to the book, listening to the audiobook. And on my commute to campus one day, it just happened to be the day when it finished that Chancellor Dan Greenstein was making his first appearance at the university. And I sat there and listened to him, and was shocked that it was basically, I just read the guidebook to what's going on here. So I'm just going to throw that down in the links in the kind of the chat and the Podbean if anybody's interested in that. But definitely check it out. I think it's a lot of what's going on here. I want to move to really talk about what's some of the actions. I know there's a couple rallies that are coming up and so on. But I want to say, remind everybody, if you're tuning in here on Podbean, if you're tuning in on our YouTube channel, you can help support this show becoming a patron for as little as $5 a month. Go to patreon.com/rcpress. If you're on the Podbean app, you can kind of click that little gift icon at the bottom of your screen and send us a virtual cup of coffee, love balloons, some roses, even a bike, right? Whatever you give this helps support this show. Want to really appreciate it. And yes, if you're listening on YouTube, make sure you smash that subscribe button, make sure you hit that notification bell, and like this stream. So let's talk about kind of where we go from here. Matt, you just said that you think this is a winnable fight. It seems to me that, the students seem to be very resistant to this kind of change. It seems that the community is very resistant. And matter of fact, all the rallies that I saw that were happening in the fall, right, you're talking about a huge swath of the community and the university together, right, wanting to save kind of Lock Haven University and want to prevent this from going on. So maybe we could start with Sean. I saw this one, got this rally opposing job cuts at Lock Haven on March 20th, right? You get front and center on that.
Right.
So that's happening this coming weekend, right?
This coming Saturday, 10 o'clock in Triangle Park at Lock Haven. It's a small public park, and speakers from AFSCME, from APSCUF. We'll have some students. We'll have some coaches. We'll have some of those very people who are perhaps losing their jobs, some of the custodians and grounds crew. And the point we're trying to make is that the loss of these jobs will have a significant impact on not only the families involved, but on the community, on the businesses in the community. And we really want the community's support in fighting this. And what they can do is to write their legislators, write the governor, write the board of governors, and let them know that this is not the way to go, that Lock Haven does not need this consolidation and this 2-year plan to slash jobs from both faculty and staff, that we are on the road to recovery, that we have a good plan, and to let us complete the plan.
Yeah, and it seems like that's all spelled out there. So we got the 20th rally. What are some of the other things that are coming up here? I think there's something on, was it March 30th? There's another, or am I getting that wrong?
No, go ahead, Peter.
There's a town hall, and I think APSCUF is leading that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
Correct.
right.
Go ahead.
We're leading. We're leading a town hall on the 30th of March from 7 to 8:30. Basically, to answer questions from people in the local community, from students, business owners, also from other faculty, and we're going to be looking to try and answer as much as we can based on the information that's available at that time.
Right,
Great.
and part of the problem is that, and as has been mentioned, is that we don't have answers because the chancellor doesn't have answers. So how are we supposed to say that this is a good plan when we don't know what the plan is?
Well, I'm curious, when you're talking to, say, for example, members of the community, or even, say, elected officials, and I don't know, Matt, if you're kind of engaging with this any at the kind of the state level too as well. I'm just, how is that seem to be received by the board of governors or to any kind of like legislators? We're seeing that there's this pretty significant plan that has not been spelled out, and some basic questions sounds like they have not been answered.
Well, it's one of those things where state APSCUF has to be to balance things a little bit here. At the local level, obviously, we need to fight pretty hard to save that. But it does not mean that at the state level that APSCUF is not dialed in as well. One of the things that's starting to trouble some of these people that we're talking to at the state level is the lack of a plan, and so those contacts are being made, and our concerns are being expressed, and so I think what's going to come down to again is keeping yourself informed. Again, the chancellor will have to present this plan in April. At that point, there's a 60-day public comment period, and then there needs to be a supermajority of the board of governors that votes to approve this plan in the summer BOG meeting. So the fight goes on, and obviously once that plan is presented, I believe there will be even more points to put pressure on.
So, and now you say you think this is a winnable fight. Why do you think this is a winnable fight?
Well, I just think, there's the old cliche, we're on the side of the angels here. I firmly believe that, you get to a point here where, again, their arguments, meaning the state system's arguments, fall apart. Are there financial concerns? Absolutely. But I do believe that the state system has abdicated its responsibility to advocate for proper funding for the state system of higher education. We rank anywhere from 48th to 51st, if you include the District of Columbia, in terms of different metrics for support for public higher education. We have significant student debt. Our support per student has declined since the 80s, whereas we used to cover about 75% of tuition costs. We now cover less than 25%. How's that balanced? It's balanced on the backs of our students. And this chancellor has only asked for the past 2-3 years for a 2% increase in state appropriations. And frankly, that's just that's not enough any way you look at it.
Well, look, I mean, this has been the ongoing problem that I keep coming up against when it comes to PASHE. Just you gave the numbers there, and I think that's right on the money. You seem basically, it's not even just a flip flop, right? I mean, it's actually when the state system started, right? The kind of state support. It's not as like now that's going to flip. No, it used to be like whatever, around 65%, as you're saying, right? And now it's like 65% coming from the state. Now it's 75% coming from families and students, right? And so you've got this complete flip flop. So there's been a disinvestment in public higher education in the state. Pennsylvania consistently ranks near the bottom when it comes to state support for public higher education. Our students carry this, depending on which numbers you look at, anywhere between the second or third largest debt load, right, of any student body in the state. And especially even though that's including those students that are coming out of the state system. Some of the state system school students are coming out with larger debt, and it has everything to do with the fact that, like our state has defunded this and put the burden back on these students and their families. And it seems to me like that's the fight, right? I mean, because it seems to me what I find so devastating about what's happening right now to Lock Haven. Look, we've been through it at Kutztown, right? I've been sitting in the most agonizing meetings of my life when I'm watching the deans basically telling our nursing staff about they have to plan their own exit from the program, their own program's demise. It is the most brutal thing. I mean, literally, these 3 faculty members in tears trying to take care of all their students, telling stories about them. And as our dean just sitting there like, well, we need to make sure that those students get through their program. So who's going to teach it? Right. These are devastating conversations of people who put their life work into something. And really, it's like it's all getting played out at the local level when we've got, and again, it has to be. And at the same time, there's a bigger fight here in Pennsylvania about are we just going to let kind of the working class students of the state like go by the wayside and basically say, hey, we're going to cut you loose. You're on your own. I mean, especially the students who are coming in, the whole idea about having state system schools spread out across the state is because, all the research shows this, is that if you have first generation college students, they need to, and they go to a place that's close to their home, they're more likely to have the support and stay in school than they are if they're just kind of shipped off to some random school kind of across the country, right? And it has everything to do with kind of being able to be connected to their families and everything. And that was the mission of the state system back when they were normal schools, and here they are now. And it seems like we're basically saying to the next generation, you're on your own.
Right. Yeah. It's really scary. And the fact is that, the students are out there. I know one of the mantras that they try to give as well is that we have a declining traditional age student population. Well, the fact is, and you can look at the Keystone Resource Center, and there's a map that they did just a few years ago, and they look at the northern tier of Pennsylvania and the southern tier of New York. In terms of college, the amount of college graduates. If you look at the southern tier of New York, it's like this nice, deep green or this nice green color. You look at the northern tier of Pennsylvania, and it's this faint hue of green. So the students are out there. The need is there. You've got to have some level of post-secondary education in order to have a livable income.
Well, absolutely. And I'm looking at Sean. I'm looking at your experience. You came back to college. You graduated at the age of 41 with a degree, right? I mean, and my guess would be, you tell me, but my guess would be is like that's because Lock Haven was there, right?
Well, absolutely, yes. I mean, I was raising a family, and Lock Haven was there. And I could commute within 15 minutes. And I knew that I needed a college degree to support my family. That was my driving goal.
And this is kind of what we got at stake here. This is incredible. So again, a reminder of anybody, if anybody does want to chime in, you can hit that little call button on the Podbean app or kind of leave your comments in kind of YouTube. It looks like we've got Teen Town on YouTube. For some reason, I think the YouTube bots are retracting your messages for some reason. I don't know why. I've been trying to fix that. But you got some folks out there who are strong supporters of what you all are kind of doing with Lock Haven. So it's pretty good. So where do you see things now? I mean, let's go around the horn again here to kind of say, where do you see things are? What needs to happen? What do we need to be paying attention to? Go from there. Let's start right at the top here with Peter again.
Well, I think first of all we got to get a plan. They got to share it with us. We got to see the details, be able to evaluate if there are positives or negatives within this plan to move forward. I get a little concerned when we start saying that we're right-sizing, and that's the process that we're using, that's the terminology we're using. the idea that we have to right-size before summer of 2022 prior to any merger taking place. Well, if we're right-sizing, why do we need a merger? Is one of the things I want to kind of know as we're going through this as well. They also call it the financial sustainability plan. Well, if we're put in a situation where we are, financially sustainable, it's kind of like if you don't plan on actually sustaining it as an independent entity past that point, what's the purpose of calling it the financial sustainability plan? So I think it's kind of getting answers to these questions, having what the plan is so we can actually analyze it, we can evaluate it. And I think it's more than just us wanting to know the unknowns and the angst and the anxiety that causes. I think it's detrimentally hurting the enrollment at the institutions involved in this process, whether it's through the recruitment and possibly through the retention. As Matt indicated, we're here to provide a quality education to the students in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, to provide affordable access to a quality education. But if they don't know what programs we're going to have, if they don't know what the name of the school is, it causes challenges to try and recruit them to the institution for even this upcoming year. So I think all of those questions need to be answered sooner rather than later. And I would argue that they're already very late in getting those answers out, and it's negatively impacting the institutions.
Absolutely. Sean, how about you?
I echo what Peter said. I mean, we need to know what the plan is. I think the chancellor is putting the cart before the horse, saying, well, we're going to do this and the right sizing thing. But as Peter said, if we're right sized, why do we need to integrate if we're going to be sustainable after we right size? It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. And it seems to me that, this is the kind of thing, too, that once you go down this path, once you kind of outsource all those jobs, once you kind of eliminate all those, there's no going back at that point.
No, there's no going back. And that's going to have a devastating impact on the economy. And I even say it's going to impact the students, because you have somebody coming in working for minimum wage. Most likely, they're not going to have the passion and the concern for these students that the men and women who worked for years with them. I mean, they built relationships, and that's so vitally important.
Absolutely. And Matt, let's go to you.
Well, sure. If we're at what we're asking is what's the way forward? How do we fight? The one thing is, follow some of these places. Some of us on social media. You can follow the LHU APSCUF Student Liaison. We have a Twitter feed for that. We also have an LHU APSCUF Facebook page that you can just search for. Also, there's a group called Save Our State Schools. If you just search for that, you can even Google that. They have their own website as well as a Twitter account. You'll get some good coverage there. You'll get some good information. And also, we really need people to write their representatives, their state representative, their state senator, and write the governor and write the Secretary of Education. Those people are the folks that the chancellor has to answer to. This chancellor is sold out on this. He's married to it. We're not going to change his mind, but we do need to change the minds of eight members of the board of governors. And again, by writing letters to those folks who are supposed to represent us in the assembly, as well as the governor and the Secretary of Ed, like I said, Noe Ortega. Those are the ways you fight.
Excellent, and I'm glad you did all the plugs. I was going to say all those links are going to be in our show notes, right? Because I want to make sure that people get out there. Obviously, this is the kind of this is a fight that's all hands on deck. I mean, if Absolutely. It's not, you can't sit this one out. I mean, it seems like there's more and more of these every single day these days. But it really is not one of these ones you could sit things out. You definitely want to kind of reemphasize getting over to kind of the Save Our State Schools. You can check them out on Twitter at Our State Schools. That is they're kind of like bringing a whole lot of the multiple fights that are happening across the state system to that space. It's a great place to kind of get engaged. You can also, like exactly what Matt said, you hit up the LHU Facebook page, their Twitter, and all that stuff. That'll all be in the show notes for today. So you click on over there. And I'm not gonna ask all you to kind of sign on to this one, but my message to everybody listening to tonight, listening to this podcast, and kind of thinking about how you can help. One of the things that the spade work, the hard spade work that again, Peter, Sean, and Matt are doing, where you're trying to get them to articulate what their plan is. You want them to answer specific questions, right? All that work has to be done. Right. The work of getting the facts, getting kind of specifics, and getting all those kind of arguments has to be done. That is the inside, right? If we've learned anything from these past 4 years, right, is that we win when we have an inside and an outside game, right? That means that just what Matt was just saying, that means, yes, writing to representatives. I want to kind of target some of their ones in particular. If you think about the Board of Governors, the Board of Governors ultimately has to accept this, right? And that is a pressure point. I agree with what Matt said about the Chancellor. He's wedded to this. There's no turning back. He's not listening to people anymore. This is his plan. This is his baby. I've got ideas about why he's doing this in Pennsylvania, but we'll leave that for another time. But the Board of Governors, Cynthia Shapiro, right? She's kind of at the front, like, write to her. Look up those people on the board members. I'll put that link in the show notes too as well. Organizing on the outside, basically saying, no, we're not going to do. So as much as the inside work has got to be done, the outside organizing's got to happen too as well, right? This is where, again, I can't tell you. I remember standing on the Capitol steps in Harrisburg, when we were fighting what was at that point was a proposed 50% cut to the budget of the state system of higher education. And, we're kind of giving speeches and everything. There was an amazing turnout, but you also felt the weight of things, right? You felt like, man, I don't know if this is coming back. And then I remember looking down State Street, right, in Harrisburg, and seeing the Lock Haven cross-country team come running up State Street.
Right.
They had run from Lock Haven, right, to the Capitol steps, right, to show their support and commitment. And that'll always stick to me about this. This is one, they had these students, right, and you had them kind of showing us that, look, the long game is what matters here. You got to be in it. You got to have the stamina. You got to stay with it, right, and you'll get there. And I really think that, if you're a student of Lock Haven, you're an alumni of Lock Haven University, if you are a faculty or student in any other of the state system of higher education schools, this is a fight for you. I don't know how that you all are kind of manage with the day to day sometimes, right? Given all that's been thrown at you. But I can't tell you enough of how much I kind of respect and appreciate the fight and want to help in any way that I can to kind of amplify this message too as well.
Well, we appreciate this time that you've given us, Kevin. Certainly, and this is a big help. It's a big boost. Thank you so much.
You got
Yes,
it.
Kevin. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So anything else you want to say kind of before we close things out?
Just that Lock Haven is a wonderful, wonderful school. The faculty, the staff, everyone there makes a big difference in all the students' lives. And we want to keep it. We want to keep that special place where we can educate students and nurture them and help them become the professionals that they hope to be.
Yeah, I would go along with that. And I think, Lock Haven University and the management team have had alternatives to the Chancellor's plan of this 2-year come into financial sustainability and this requirement to merge. And I believe that it would be a better path forward for Lock Haven University, for the students of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, to provide a quality education and access to those students, and also for the community. And I think that the Chancellor is being short-sighted in looking at the merger integration instead of looking at realistic solutions to realistic problems.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No. It's Matt. And I just simply say, echoing what Peter and Sean have said, but Sean saying that this is a wonderful place. It truly is. I mean, I've made my home here. Literally bought a house. Both my kids went K through 12. My daughter's going, is at Lock Haven University now. I don't want to go. I love it here. I'm bought in, and and again, it is still a great school. What has happened, in terms of enrollment, has been because of a management that for about 8 years here didn't market us, made all kinds of mistakes. But we have this system in place we have management in place right now where we could pull out of this. And we're set, and we can do that, and we will. With the wonderful faculty we have, our great students, our wonderful staff, our custodians, our secretaries, our grounds crew, and so forth. We're going to come out of this, and if we can get some help along the way from friends, alumni, and students, that'd just be wonderful.
100%. I think that I have. There was a time that I started looking for jobs up at Lock Haven. To be honest with you, we had run into so much. I could go on and on about our administration at Kutztown University, but I won't do that right now. But
you guys have a reputation.
Yeah, well deserved. There's I was coming back from a legislative assembly. I've been involved in APSCUF, since I first arrived on campus in 2002. And I was a delegate for most of that time up until our second kid, and then I needed a little break.
Sure.
But I was driving back from I believe it was in State College, one of the legislative assemblies, and I was coming back and said, you know what? Every time that I've gone to legislative assembly and I talked to folks from Lock Haven, they rave about the place. And, I remember thinking, I've never been there. So I just took a little detour on my way home, and I kind of went to Lock Haven, and it just it took me back. I mean, honestly, just the place, it seemed so welcoming, right? And just, I kind of walked around the campus. There's a little, I don't know, a coffee shop or diner right on the kind of the main strip there. I sat down and had something to eat. And, I was just like, man, this seems like a place that I could live in for the rest of my life, and
absolutely,
and it really is that kind of place. And I just, I can't. All the students that I've met there, the other thing that I just found out, which I didn't know, is that almost all of our librarian staff at Kutztown comes from Lock Haven.
No kidding.
They got their degrees at Lock Haven. I happened to notice it in passing, and I was like, "Hey, wait a minute! They're all from Lock Haven." So I'm going to be bugging
That's great
them.
to hear.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be bugging them this week to make sure that they're writing their legislatures out there. So
absolutely.
So it's pretty good. I just love the place, and I think that we have to kind of defend these institutions. You've heard us talk about that on Out the Coop Live. You heard us talk about Out the Coop podcast for years about the importance of defending our kind of public institutions in here. I want to remind everybody too, as well, that we're going to have a special podcast this week too. That it's going to come out kind of in the middle of the week. It's not going to be live. We're doing it kind of off air, but it will kind of show up there. That's going to be with Christina Marusik. She's a reporter for Environmental Health News, an investigative reporter, and she just put out this amazing 4-part series called Fractured, where she's looking at the impact of the chemical impacts, in particular, pollution impacts on several families in Southwest Ohio from the fracking industry. So she's going to be on talking about that new report on Wednesday. So look for that in your feeds. Of course, we'll be back on Friday with our regular podcast. And the plan is for next week, I'm going to be staying on the Poshy tip for kind of quite a bit. We might have an open phones next week. That's what it looks like. Although there's somebody who might be joining me, we shall see. But I want to look at these some of the economic impact studies that have come out about the impact of the Poshy universities on kind of small towns around the state, because this really is a fight to save one of the gems of what is ours, right? What is part of this Commonwealth, what is part of this public institution, what is part of, the backbone of ensuring, that, say, working families in this state and their children have access to kind of affordable public higher education. And these folks that you're listening to right now, right? Listen to Matt Gerton, listen to Sean Odell, listen to Peter Campbell, right? They put their lives in this, and this is what kind of makes these institutions. This is the lifeblood of it. So yes, people look at the finances of this, people look at all this kind of stuff, but we're talking about the human cost and the human work that goes into making these places just absolutely shine. Look, I really appreciate appreciate you guys taking some time out in the midst of all this to kind of be on here. Remind it'll kind of showing up in our podcast stream on our YouTube. I will send this out to everybody. Feel free to kind of share it around to everybody that you can. And I let me know how I can help, and I'd be happy to kind of bring you guys back on for updates when you think it sees fit. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
All right, you got it. All right, so this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken. Thank you all for tuning in tonight for Out to Coop Live. Look for us again Friday for our flagship show and that special kind of midweek with Christina Marusik. We'll talk to you soon, everybody. In for the fight. See ya!